Amanda coming in on the fire truck.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Big thing. All right. I would also make a request if there are any board members that would like to help me rainbow some kids. The band and chorus kids may need an extra hand. So if anybody's available and wants to give me a hand to make sure that they don't run them up, I would really appreciate it. You can talk to me after the meeting. All right, next we have recognition of visitors and guests. And our first one is Paonia's Great Paonia Elementary School recognition. Every year, Paonia Elementary School goes out and helps rake the parks. And this is a great benefit to the town, and we really, really appreciate them. And so we would like to thank them very much for all their efforts. And we have a certificate. You guys want to come forward? Very cool. And you are?
Diane.
Hi, Cheyenne. Jada? Katie? Madison.
Mr. B.
Mr. B. Thank you guys. Here's a little certificate for you you can share. Thank you so much. We appreciate your work a lot. Thank you.
You do your normal pose.
Alright, thank you so much. Alright, the next thing is the proclamation for hospice and palliative care month. Is there anyone here from Hope West? Seeing none. Okay, every year we're going to do this proclamation to make November hospice and palliative care month. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's in the packet. It basically says we're declaring November hospice and palliative care month. So I have set my hand and caused the official seal of the town is 10th day of November. Therefore, thank you. Moving on. Staff reports. Administrators report. Corinne, you are up.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to address at the last meeting, a citizen noted concern with lights that are located on private property in the evening. And I did want to let the board know that I believe this will be addressed during review and discussion of the dark skies ordinance, which will begin January of 2021 at the board level. A local bed and breakfast is requested the town consider reducing the 500-foot restriction for a limited bed and breakfast liquor permit. I'm looking into this, and information and board direction requests will be forthcoming. I wanted to thank the community for bringing concerns regarding allowing contractors to wash out concrete truck chutes at Sylvan's property. Moving forward, we have looked into this, and moving forward, we plan to either have the contractor wash out at their own location or provide a temporary washout location. Upon initial thought, it seemed to make sense to utilize a vacant piece of town property that was zoned industrial, but under the circumstances, we do agree that that needs to be modified. Our public works director has also reached out to the state just to get some guidance and direction on the proper way to clean up the little area of concrete washout that is currently on that piece of property. The Delta County COVID Community Dashboard has been added to the town's website. It's under the news link so that anyone who's trying to access that, if you're not going through the Delta County, if you go to news, it says Delta County COVID. And when you click on that, it takes you straight into the taskbar, which gives you up-to-date results and where the county is in the COVID results. The sound system update is actually scheduled for repair and update, not repair, to be updated to allow for quality sound for people that are watching the meetings remotely or after the fact, and we anticipate that to be complete the week after Thanksgiving. So it should be functioning properly by the meeting in December, and that is all I have.
Okay, any questions for the town administrator about what she has talked about?
Yes, Dave.
This is, website is getting back where outbreaks are, and we know the outbreaks in our community. And this has been a long-standing problem. The county health department allows Western Health. I wish we could go about the community, but they're not made by COVID, and HIPAA does not prevent that. So we think the board would need to say something to the county about the way the health department is reporting this. My mother-in-law is being treated by hospice right now, and I found out about the outbreak of hospice by having to go to the state site, our own county site, that no information about it, and having to go to the state now. And our own county was not telling us that we had an outbreak at Hope West in Delta. So, I really think that there needs to be a change in that, and I'm speaking out about it. Because it's just not right, given what we have.
And I had a long conversation with Greg Randowski about this afternoon, prior to coming to the board meeting. And that was specific to my point, was why can't we get data for our zip code? And he said the problem is it's not going to help you. All across Delta County, the incidence rate is the same for all communities. So that Delta has the same percentage of outbreak as Cedar Ridge, as Hotchkiss, as the Farms, as Paonia. So giving numbers as far as that goes, it's the same across the board. We can get them, but it's kind of useless when it comes to that. Hotspots, yeah. We have to go to the state to get the hotspots. But we don't have that information that they're providing us. He also said that the way things are going, that right now the county still has us listed as blue, which is one step up from green. So we're safer at home, but we're at level 1 on safer at home. The fact is, we had to get 2 weeks of data at the higher levels of outbreak that the county then looks at. 1 week they're allowed to then see if it goes down before they get kicked up. He said that in 2 weeks, they now have, at the end of this week, they will have their 2 weeks of data. So in 1 week, he said we will be kicked up, not to yellow, but to orange, because our numbers are high enough to put us in that category. That means that we have 25% capacity indoors for meetings, which is 50 people, 175 outdoors. And that, I'm sorry, I take that back. If we go up to orange, it's 75 people maximum outdoors. So our numbers are increasing exponentially. And he said, just like everybody else, the best thing to do is to stay home. So we are looking at this. We have the Creative Coalition December Christmas Fair coming up the first week in December. And what will happen with that, we shall see. Again, he said Mesa County currently is in a list that they have really cracked down, and they're not allowing more than 10 people inside any space currently. And that we may be at that point in 2 weeks from now. And we are 2 weeks behind. We have been trailing Mesa County by 2 weeks, historically. So we really need to take a look at, and this may be hard, because we do have a public budget review next meeting, and it may need to be via Zoom. And I hate to do that, but it may be the safest thing for us to do. And I apologize, but I would rather see people safe than harmed because we had a public meeting where people could attend in person. Yes, Suzanne.
So I understand that, you might be going to Zoom with them pretty soon. However, this pandemic, we're looking months out still.
Yes.
Even if there's vaccinations, there are going to be people who don't take it. So, I'd like to say, I know we've been recognizing businesses that have great policies. I like to go to Farm and Home because I go in there and if I forget my map, they've got a nice little table right there. I can grab one. They've got hand sanitizer. The library is a little bit, I personally don't want to use their hand sanitizer. I bring my own little bottle of straight alcohol. And I know you honored them last time, but when I come to town hall, I don't see a box of masks there. And it would be really nice for us to put that out for public. Mine is broke again, I just tied it up. So there's something where people can just grab them without asking. It just costs a few cents. And I think it would be nice, even though we might be shut down soon, when we open back up, we still might want to have masks easy for people to grab if they need to without raising their hand.
Thank you. That's very good. Yes.
Hi, thanks. I was wondering if that reimbursable COVID grant was going to be used for the sound system.
Yes.
Oh. And are there any big other chunky things that you're using with that grant?
The business grants and the support of North Fork Senior Connections grants that or assistance they're offering individual community members to assist them with food need, utility need, or other bills and such. Those are the other large ticket items that are out of that.
On that, one of those grants, not the senior one, I went to click on it and it doesn't go anywhere. It's not on the town website. It doesn't access such.
It may have been during the transition from the WordPress website to the ZIPA website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Michelle.
Just a question to get an update on a couple of things. Have you received any water board applications to date?
One.
I know our deadline is coming up. I wonder if we could push that on social media again, just to let people know.
Yes.
And I noticed the packet shortcuts still aren't working. So
They are not. There's some updates that I'm working with Media Code to find out what we're doing when we're uploading data that's not connecting correctly to their system.
Okay. And then at the last meeting, actually Mayor Clausen, Mayor Gaffron, I pronounced your name wrong, I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter.
You mentioned scheduling a joint meeting of the trustees and the planning commission to talk about several things, including building inspection, I think.
Yes. That has not been formulated at all. I know the planning, if things go forward, I don't know how far along is the subdivision before it goes to planning.
It's scheduled to go at the beginning of December, but I wouldn't, I'll defer to Bill, but I wouldn't necessarily think that would be the appropriate one to have a joint meeting.
Right.
The board will be reviewing Evo's river subdivision proposal at the following meeting.
So it seems to me that is probably going to get pushed off until after the first of the year.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, seeing none. Let's oh, I'm sorry.
I figured I'd trust these first. Page Smith, 215 Delta Avenue, and I just have a couple more questions. Corinne, I was wondering how did the application process go for business applications for the COVID piece of the grant?
We have many in, over a dozen, and they're going through the review process.
Okay, good. And then getting back to the cement washout, at this point, I was curious as to whether the contract for that, for hiring, I think it's United, wouldn't it be in the contract that they follow best management practices? I think that would be a piece in a contract, just for future reference. And I would hope the town is going to pay to clean that up.
The town gave permission for them to utilize the site, so if there's a cost for cleanup, the town will pay it.
All right, that's kind of disturbing. I'm sorry to hear that, because that's an expense that wasn't planned. And I would hope you do that ASAP, now that it's wet, and there's going to be runoff, and there's going to be percolation.
It is underway, it is being done.
Please, that's really important. Thank you. And thank you all, I hope you understand my concern.
Okay, any others? If I catch anybody out there? All right. Moving on, let's go to the public works. Travis?
Thank you. The week back has been running the last couple of weeks between weather, and we'll continue to run until weather stops us. The second and grand intersection is almost complete. Got a little bit of delay in weather and delays in concrete pours. So we should finish second and grand intersection. We should finish that up this week. The red lines on the water part of the map are almost complete. They're actually at the engineer right now. They should talk to Brandon today, and they should be uploaded by the end of this week, hopefully. Brown Steel was supposed to be here Monday to start installation on the 1 million gallon SCADA system, but they had a problem with a damaged piece, damaged controls, so they're a week behind, so they will be here next Monday, or it's coming out Monday, to start installation on the SCADA system. Production of water has gone down from about 220,000 gallons a day to about 140,000 gallons a day, which makes our stilling about 60,000 gallons now. So we're doing pretty decent on water at the moment. Our sidewalks, they're still working down there on Box Elder. We had to get some parts for our stump grinders so they could finish that section up. They're hoping they'll probably by the end of next week they'll be done with Box Elder and move down to 3rd Street. And that's all I've got unless anybody else has any questions.
Yes, Bill.
On the second and grand intersection there, that you're repairing, I noticed all your cones and your white, or your red safety pits are all blown down, and so it's not guarded. I think you should get those back up as soon as possible. And then a question on the 50,000 gallons per day, is that a per day still? So you're still on 50,000 gallons per day? 60,000, sorry, okay. Thanks.
Other questions? All right, we'll start the camera, go around.
It's no question, it's a promise from my mom to my mom. She thanks the town for the leaf back and all the hard work that the crew is doing, chasing down every single little speck of dust and leaf. So she was pretty impressed by that, so thank you.
And I would second that. I got a call from Linda Talbot who said exactly the same thing. This is the best it has ever been, and she really appreciated you guys' work.
Thank you.
All right, Dave?
Well, I hate to be the COVID guy, but I'm really recommending on whether we can do soil testing for COVID. And I'm really doing a phone call, and I'd like to hear an answer soon.
I've been working with the state health department. They've got one lab that they're working with, and they got 7 communities that are doing the testing right now, and they're filled up. So I'm still waiting for a response. I'll do a follow-up call tomorrow. They were supposed to be giving me other labs that are testing for it, but I haven't received any yet that aren't full yet.
But maybe basically we will try to work with it, that's why.
Who else is next? Michelle, Karen? All right, Michelle.
An update on the bulk water product?
Right now we're waiting for Elevate to get internet at the shop so they can talk back and forth to the office. The update I got today was about a week out before Elevate gets there, and they have to have that before they can program IP addresses into the 12-point system. That's all 12 points waiting for is the IP addresses.
Okay, so the rest of it's I know there was a repair that had to happen, it was in the shop or something at our last meeting. That's all done.
On the existing.
On the existing, I fixed it.
Okay, great. And my only other question is, I know we have our new skid steer purchased. If that one is in service, do we have a plan for the option of the old skid steer?
The new skid steer is ready for pickup, and we will have a resolution probably at the next meeting for disbursement of that and a couple other pieces of equipment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then,
I'm wondering when the 30 grand intersection will be started?
We were going to start this week with it, but with the Christmas tree, we're delaying it. Hopefully we can finish up the 3rd Street, or 2nd Street intersection this week, and I want to be able to start it the following week, so Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, yes.
I have a question about the work on,
We can just state your name.
sorry, Kristen,
David.
about the work on Second and that. Is it costing any more because of the delays?
No, not at this moment. The only extra cost is there was a soft spot kind of in front of the bank that we had to overestimate, and the material that we brought back in was from the concrete and stuff that we crushed earlier this year.
Other questions? Yes, Suzanne.
I was curious about the leaf back loads. How are you dispersing those? Is there a list for people to sign up if they want mulch or what?
What we've been dispersing right at the moment is the people that are in town that want the loads that talk with us. We'll just dump them there if we can get the leaf back into their property.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any others? Seeing none, I do have a question on the red line water that you talked about. Is that on the GIS mapping project that we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Apologies for interrupting. Deputy Clerk pointed out to me that under announcements, you provided announcements, but you didn't give an opportunity for guests if they have announcements.
Thank you. Does anyone else have an announcement? Yes, please, I'm sorry.
And I just want to bring out that a group called Greater Emails is sponsoring a workshop on how to talk with family about politics. And it's very timely because Thanksgiving is coming up. So we're going to hold on to the meeting that's online, and people can go to greateremails.org and click on events, and you'll find it there. So I hope Thanksgiving dinners.
If anyone gets to go home for Thanksgiving. That would be, okay. Let's move on. Yes, please.
Just two things real quickly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to see a show of hands. Who can remember when we had 2 dispensaries on Main Street?
Okay, Steve,
Good.
if you want to bring up subjects that are outside of the agenda, you really need to come and do it at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, okay, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Is your second one on the agenda?
It's not. I thought this was a general comment.
No, I'm sorry, it is not. And, you know, I have to, I will take responsibility here because I did forget to ask for visitors to comment.
It can be another time.
No, that's okay, Steve, because it was my mistake, and I messed up. So go ahead with your
I'll make it
marijuana comments.
I'll make it very quick. Thanks, Madam Mayor. So I would suggest that the town take on this opportunity before any decisions are made by January 1st regarding the architecture of the dispensaries, that the town uses this opportunity as a public relations time and propose something that garners the attention of everyone in the state of Colorado, including our dear governor. And that could be the town announcing, even if there's just a shred of discussion going on, the town of Paonia says we've been known as a marijuana growing center for 50 years. We made the cover of High Times magazine 50 years ago. Perhaps the town should be making a statement about how much the town is looking forward to considering. Now, I'm just saying the word considering, but you as mayor saying the word considering will garner a lot of very positive media attention that I think will bring in good dollars to the town. And that would simply be the town is considering owning its own marijuana dispensary. I think the government will have to say, I don't know if we can do it that way. But so just as to bring in good dollars, to bring in more good dollars, I'm a big advocate, and we've talked about this before, that with all the negotiations that Bobby and Mary are going to have to do with this agricultural land they're acquiring, the quarry properties, limited hours so that the town can present itself to people considering bringing their family for a visit, bringing good dollars in to allow swimming in their spectacular lake. That is such a special place with its underground springs. I think it should be shared with the town. Limited hours with the town, assuring everyone that owns parts of that lake that the insurance is going to be covered all. And then for sure with our new administration, something that I think will bring in very good dollars is the fact that one of the best ways to soak up excess carbon in the atmosphere, the Biden-Harris administration is fully invested in this. The best way to soak up excess carbon in the air is right here in the valley, through the soils. And this is going to be a big deal nationwide. The Australians got to the point where they were actually sending paychecks to the farmers to bank soil. They were that far advanced. Then they had a new government come in that was conservative. They nixed the whole program. I can assure you, we are going to have that rolled out in America. And the science is very exciting about this. The Australians feel that if America got serious, and we paid our farmers $25 to $35 per ton to bank in our acreage, we could get down to 1950s levels of CO2 in the atmosphere in 10 years' time. I think the valley here is perfect as a showcase valley for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Yes, Suzanne?
I was just thinking, and I said this a long time ago, if you think the pod is such a big boom here, you might want to trademark the name Paonia and charge people if they want to use it. And maybe Paonia Purple. Although I'm not sure you can actually do that with a trademark because it's federally prohibited marijuana, so that might be out of bounds. But maybe you want to trademark the name Paonia and charge people to use it in their product. Anyway.
Okay, thank you. Well, good thought idea. We'll move forward with this as it goes on. We can bring our ideas to the table as we go on. All right, let's get back to our agenda and the police report. And thank you, everyone, for your indulgence for my mistake. All right. Yeah.
So I'm looking on something else that changes. Everybody knows that it appears that Dr. Bowers has passed. I would personally like to thank all the voters out there that voted for it or against it. Just everybody that came out and voted. There was a huge number of voters, and just would like to thank everybody who came out. Once again, we have used the Paonia board for training, for driving training. Unfortunately, our social instructor was unable to come out. But one of our officers is a certified driving instructor, and he took over this year for having some of that done. We'll be completing our ethics, community policing, and anti-bias training in the next couple of weeks as well, so that way we can get all of our post-mandated done. We have purchased 4 in-car camera systems for our police cars to be in police cars, and I will be installing those in the next couple of weeks, and that's about all I have for now.
Okay, any questions for the chief from the board? Seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the attorney's report.
I don't have anything, any written report.
All right, thank you. All right, next on the list is disbursements.
Sorry, is there a question for the attorney?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
I just wanted to check on regarding her building inspection contract, since we're past that.
And I'm happy to provide you guys notice. Notice was provided on October 30th to Colorado Code Consultants, and so that's a public notice. It's my understanding that the contact with CCC has been out of town and that they will be getting back in touch with respect to a proposed interim contract, but we have not seen anything as of yet.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's move on to disbursements. Our treasurer is not here. Does somebody else have a report from the treasurer? Yes, Cindy.
So we have, went over payroll and, thank you. Payroll and disbursements. We had several meetings about the budget, and that's the end of our report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Who gets to make the motion, guys?
And then we have a motion on disbursements. We'd like to ask the board if they would approve accounts payable of $79,301.20. The change credit card of $12,525.12. Transfer payroll of $18,951.37. Payroll taxes in the amount of $8,775.24. And finally, a payroll direct deposit of $18,951.37.
Okay, we have a second. All right. Questions? Yes, Bill.
The weekender sports, $921.42, and the tag says water repair. What is that?
That's parts for the flutter stranger that we use up on the hill for water repairs.
That comes, it's for what, Travis? Sorry.
The flutter stranger
Oh,
that we
okay.
use up on the hill.
Any other questions? Yes, Michelle.
This isn't specifically about disbursements, but I was wondering if somebody could provide a little more information on page 29 of the packet. It looks like we've got our bank balances and then some description, unless I've missed a whole lot, that's a new piece of the packet. So just an overview of what we're looking at.
She's scrolling.
Okay.
There it is.
I'm thinking that's related to what we talked about getting more information on what we're keeping in reserves and why and what it's supposed to go for, but I just want to make sure I'm looking at that correctly.
That's correct. So the top half is broken by institution or where the funds are. So the First State Bank of Colorado, which is now UBB, has 1.169 there, and Pulla Trust has 1.757, and then I wrote details what funds are in those accounts. And then the second half down at the bottom is between what's combined fund and what's restricted funds.
Do you have questions about that, Michelle?
Combined funds,
Meaning that those funds come from admin, building, parks, streets. So those funds are money for all areas versus the ones that are restricted for specific purposes.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. I really appreciate that detail in the packet. One thing I'd like to see added to this, and it's possible, for those funds where we're required to hold a certain amount, if we could see where we're at in relation to where we're supposed to be. Does that make sense? Rather than just the straight dollar amount, to know, okay, we've got this amount in debt reserve, and here's where we're supposed to be by our contract.
So the debt reserve is, that's the requirement. The amount that's in that account is the requirement to stay in that account. It earns interest, that is an interest-bearing account, so it earns interest monthly. That's the one that we're also talking about moving to the CD at UBB. So that was approved at the last meeting. So those funds will be moving out of COLA Trust and moving to UBB once I get that all set up. So that amount is the amount that's required in that account.
Okay, I was just thinking back to the budget discussion where we talked about potentially maybe not meeting our reserves or being at risk of not meeting our reserves and how that's reflected in the balances, or maybe this isn't the right place for that.
She's talking about the addition that you made on the spreadsheet that we didn't get to during the work session. That will be at the bottom where we discussed where it shows the required amount that's reserved and then you go through.
So, and it's on that, it's more accurate on the history, but anyway, so there are multiple requirements. It's not a single requirement. We have multiple requirements under the Water Power Authority bond. There is, the debt reserve account, that requirement is under the AMCO bond. That's for sewer. The Water Power Authority bond has 3 layers of requirements. It has a debt service budgeting requirement. It has a percentage of expenses in reserve requirement, and it has a debt ratio calculation requirement. Those are 3 separate requirements above this requirement, this account requirement that's in here. Those 3 this is the cash requirement on the AMCO bond. The Water Power Authority bond doesn't have a cash reserve requirement, but it has those 3 other requirements, reserve requirements. So they're all different requirements.
Right. I understand we have multiple requirements. I'm just wondering if there's a way to reflect that, how close we are to meeting the requirements. But I'll follow up with you. I don't want to take too much meeting time for that, so I'm sorry. I'll follow up with you separately.
And I encourage you to do that, but the other thing is that I'm not sending now, when we get our budget documents, whenever we get our financials, that at the very bottom, it is our reserves are broken out into those reserves that we cannot touch, that are needed to fulfill our requirements. And if it's a negative number, then it's fine. And then the reserves that we can actually use. So hopefully that will be helpful as we move along as well. Okay, Dave.
I was concerned about the process of finance and personnel, like what kind of reports do we want? It sounds like some of the reports are not meeting our needs, so if any of the board members want to see differences in reports or different format in report or different things, if we can forward that to either Karen or I when we have our finance committee meeting, we'd be glad to look at it.
All right. Yes, Bill.
I am still confused about the $58,000 for the wastewater treatment plant, old sewer rehab only, and I guess my confusion is, we got to do rehab it, and what is the requirements first to withhold that money? So perhaps, Roy, you can look into that for us and find out what is describing the need to have a $58,312 40% off?
Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah, I know
the
about it.
rationale offhand, but I'm happy to talk to Corinne and get a response, for it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, Suzanne?
I wanted to, support, Bill Bear's comment because I'm never aware that we actually had this requirement before. So I was curious, did it come from the new bond, you know, when we redid the financials last spring? Because that property was reclaimed. It was filled in, the sludge was taken out as per health department standards, and it was filled in, and it was cleared over, and it was ready to sell. So I'm kind of curious why all of a sudden we have this reserve. Was it established by a board, or is it a legal requirement at this point? And where did that money come from? So thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Oh, I'm sorry, Paige?
Paige Smith, 215 Delta. My question is, this document that was handed out during the budget session was very, very useful. Lots of really good information. Thank you. And I know you put it in with the budget when you do your whole budget packet. Well, I just wondered if what Cindy was just describing, which completely went over my head, if you have that in here about money that has to be retained by law, I'm assuming by law, if you could put an explanation of that in here, perhaps, to help all of us kind of get it.
Anyway, it probably won't go in that piece, but it is in there.
Well, if the numbers are there, that's one thing. I don't know, I probably looked at these numbers in all of my looking through the various pieces of the budget, but if you could, if they're there, could you make a footnote and describe what it is?
I think it's in that, isn't that one in that packet? I don't recall, we've looked at so many pages, but yes, we can make sure that it's.
It's in English, that's all I'm looking for, is English.
Yes.
Okay.
And we are, the mayor had suggested, I mentioned before, contacting DNL, to see about potentially having someone, if you'd like to.
And I did contact CML, and there is nothing that they have for training for us. They do have other PowerPoints, but without the speaker that makes PowerPoint, it's useless. So I would suggest actually Ross is incredibly knowledgeable about all of this, and if he would be willing to do a training for us, I think it would be wonderful.
It is in this packet, it's on the page under water as well as under sewer.
And when you say this packet?
That's what you're holding in
Oh,
your
yes,
hand.
it's here, okay. Well,
It's
that's
under
what I-
water and sewer, it's under bond requirements.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second, all in favor of disbursements? Opposed? All right, that is done. Now we're going to move on to resolution 2018 water rate changes, or water rate and charges. All right, at the last workshop, we addressed changes in water rates and the charges. And that is what we are voting on currently. Does anyone have any questions or concerns from the board? Yes, Dave.
We're kind of tired of talking about it, that's not going to comments.
We talked it to pieces. All right, anything from the audience? Yes, Christine.
Thank you, Christina Patterson. I was just wondering how many low-income households are here in the area? Do you know?
I don't have specific data for low-income housing, I know for low-income houses, I know that, people that qualified for LEAP within our zip code was 80.
80 that qualify for?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's within the entire zip code, yes.
Because that's my only concern really, is these increase in rates is just really hurting these people. That $10 a month or even, is a lot for them, and that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, and we still, and correct me if I'm wrong, Corinne, but we still have our program that we set up for utility relief, for people who qualify for relief. They can come into the town and get relief from their utility bill. And I can't remember what exactly the percentage was, or...
It is a percentage. I'll have to look at what the modification is. It was $6 on the last budget, and all they have to do is bring in a copy of their newsletter and we'll copy it. And with approval for relief, you'll receive that grant relief for a full calendar year of your utility bill.
Okay. Yes, Paige.
I just hate to keep it Delta, sorry. So the service fee, section E, are those a new fee being added? Or have there always been service fees like this?
There's always been service fees, that the increases are noted, but yes, they've always been there.
Okay. Is there someplace on the webpage where the public can see service fees? Are they noted with the utility rates?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Suzanne.
How are the service fees described in the water ordinance? Are they established by the water ordinance? I didn't have a chance to try to look up the most current water ordinance, but what does the water ordinance say about service fees? Does it say they're established by resolution, or do you have
All the fees are established by resolution.
Pardon?
In the water ordinance, it does say fees are established by resolution.
It says the service fees are established and late fees are established by resolution.
It doesn't address late fees at all, I don't believe, in the ordinance. Those are administrative fees, and the late fees are included in the administrative review resolution that's before the board later this evening.
Oh, okay, thanks.
All right, anything else? All right, seeing none? Yes, Michelle. Oh, took all time.
Alright, so you all know where I stand on raising wage rates, so I'm not going to go into that again. But what I do want to ask about is kind of a bigger picture question. I know that part of the reason we need to raise rates is because we've got this very large project that has to be done, that's relighting the thing. Very expensive project. We know it's coming every 15 years, and unfortunately we're in a position where raising the funds to make it happen has been deferred for quite some time. And that's on the board that we've done that and put us in this position. But right now, water and sewer are considered enterprise fund, and because of that, they have to be run as a separate business from the general fund and everything else we're doing in the town. Does it have to be an enterprise fund? Because just generally speaking, it seems like you're nodding, it doesn't have to be an enterprise fund, we have no choice.
As long as it's a municipal utility, yes.
Okay. No, just,
keep going, keep going.
we're supposed to be able to, when we have these big ticket items, find a way to use our sales tax, use our marijuana tax, and contribute to that, but, well, not.
And part of it too is, this is all set up because of CAPER and the limitations that CAPER put on revenue raising by government. And so the enterprise funds were set aside at that point so that they could operate like businesses and actually not be affected by CAPER, which has really undercut the taxes that anyone can receive. All right, so let me get a motion. Can we have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution 2018, and establish some approved rates for water services.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, Suzanne?
So I was a little curious because I was looking at a Xerox copy budget document that I got from a couple of months ago, and the rate increases were a lot less. So I'm not quite sure why they ended up at $2.50, for instance. It's, why the rate increase was so much more than the initial proposal.
And that's because, I'll answer that right now, is because the cost for us to produce 1,000 gallons of water is $2.61.
Okay.
So we're asking people to pay minimally what it costs to make the water.
Okay, so if it costs us to produce that water, then how is anything going to the relining tank project?
The increase in the standby, or
The base rate?
the base amount is where
Okay.
is going to go toward that. And also, as the tiers go up, the prices go up. So people are paying more than what it costs to produce the water. So that's going to feed back into it as well.
Okay, and so, my other question is there any kind of like, document that's been produced to show a breakdown of how much money is projected to come in and exactly how it's going to be spent? How we're, what percentage goes on to staff salaries out of the water fund?
It's all in the budget, Suzanne. Look at the water page in the budget because it's all laid out in there.
And where's the budget now?
It's a big thing.
Yeah,
It's not available for me to look at right now?
the summary was handed out as that big spreadsheet.
Okay.
This one, right here.
Okay, does it have a page number on it?
Yeah, I have. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have a motion, we have a second.
I actually have one more question.
Okay, make it quick.
Okay, so, I'm a little concerned because we got this really terrible water violation notice. And I'm really wondering what we're paying for, the quality of work that we're actually paying for.
That will be addressed later on. Bring your question up for that at that time.
I think it
Because
pertains to the budget too, and that's why I'm bringing it up right now. It pertains to the increased rates that I'm paying, and I'm really wondering about the quality that we're, and I just want to make that statement, so it's in your minds when you're thinking about what you're just about to vote on.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? All right. That motion carries. Let's move on to resolution 2020-19 garbage rates. Again, we discussed this at the last board meeting. They are included in the packet. Any comments? Questions? Michelle?
Again, I would say I don't support the rate increase until we can also, or unless we can also offer an opt-out option, since there are now lower cost options for our citizens.
I'm sorry, what kind of option?
An opt-out of that particular service, since there are lower cost options available to people in town.
Okay, well, and I have an opinion on the opt-out option. I've been thinking a lot about this. This is a community, and when you sign up for utilities, we sign up as a community, and it supports each other in this regard. Just like when you say that you don't want to pay taxes to repaint Clark Street because you never drive down Clark Street, would you say you don't want to pay taxes on maintaining town hall because you never walk into town hall? It is community support. We all put in money to help support these utilities. It also helps people, it incentivizes people to keep their yards clean. Because the garbage can is there, they can haul it out every week, and it's cleared away. Versus people who have to do it themselves and take it to the dump, or whatever. It's a much easier option. And again, it's for community. And that's my opinion on the opt-out. Yes, Dave?
I like the opening concept, but I know that a lot of the people who would opt out would be dumping their trash in, say, the post office or Don's or the town's big trash bins. I've seen that people come from out of town with their trash and wait till everybody's gone from the post office and throw their trash into the post office trash can. I would hate to see that start, and it would happen.
Okay, Suzanne.
So you compared Paonia to Cedar Ridge with the salaries, and apparently we don't pay as well as Cedar Ridge. Well, I'm going to talk about Cedar Ridge and their trash service. They don't have one. Individual town members have to contract with local trash services, but Cedar Ridge does not provide trash service, so they don't charge people for trash. You know, we could look at that too. It is essentially an opt-out feature. I want to talk about the high cost of the spring cleanup these days. Used to be $2,000 budgeted every year, and now it's $6,000, is it? We used to have where you just put extra trash out by your can, and the guys would pick it up and haul it off. Now we have these roll-up dumpsters in the park. I was looking in there a little bit this spring. I saw paint cans. There's Thompson's water seal. There are things that are completely illegal to dump. There are people coming in from out of town, dumping their green waste, dumping their house remodel. There was a rototiller there with gas in the tank next to the dumpster. I assume the guys who pick it up just throw it all in and take it off. I think it's a much better idea. It would be less expensive for the town. We have a little bit more control over the toxic materials that end up in the landfill if we eliminated that dumpster.
We are not discussing the spring cleanup.
No, it's trash rates, Mary.
No, it is trash rate, it is not the spring cleanup.
And it adds $6,000 to our trash budget, which means my waste, I'm subsidizing this. So my other comment is the dumping in the right of ways. What type of enforcement are you going to do on this? If it's out by like the storage unit and people are dumping in the right of ways, and you guys just go up and pick it up, that affects the tipping fees. That makes my rates go up. So I guess I'm feeling really uncomfortable with these raised rates because I'm not sure there's been a concerted effort to really drill down on how we can keep the costs down on the trash. And you know, this opportunity here where you're voting on it, you can't make your mind up in a work session. You have to listen to the public comment, and you have the ability to change your mind and to discuss some of these numbers, because it's completely inappropriate to be making motions and voting on things in a work session. You know, right now is the time that, you know, you're going to be voting and honest, but you know, it's absolutely okay for me to make these comments, and you should be considering what I'm saying and open to changing your mind on these things. Thank you.
Thomas.
Thanks. Thomas Markle, 302 2nd Street.
Would you please stand, Thomas?
Sure. Yeah. So I was one of the two members of the public at the budget meeting where the garbage rates and all these other increased fees were discussed. And part of the rationale for the garbage fee increase was that a private enterprise nearby also charges like basically double what town was charging, so you double your fees. And I think that rationale is completely upside down and backwards. The purpose of town is not to create income. And I know that everybody wants more money, right? So it makes sense to increase fees, but a private enterprise has shareholders or owners who are trying to make a profit. The town should not be trying to make a profit off of garbage fees or water fees. We should not be trying to create jobs for people. You're here to create a service. I feel like these motions, Resolution 2020, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, are a symbol of failure of government here, a failure of administration, and a failure of management in general. We've had 15 years to prepare for this big ticket item, and nobody's picking up this. Nobody said, "Oh, hey, this is coming up." I think that my water bill has gone up 30% maybe in the past 3 years, and now it's going to go up another 10%. Can anybody justify that? Cindy? What's the justification?
Okay, Bo.
Again, this is direction and question and comment, not integration of town staff.
Right.
So if you want to make a comment with respect to the proposed resolution, that's totally appropriate. If not an inquiry and direction as comments directly to the staff.
Thank you both. Yes, correct.
And I would like to correct one, but just make a couple of comments. And I think that Cindy and I are planning and wanted to discuss with the board when, we don't want to inundate with special meetings and work sessions prior to meetings, but in the near future, we did look at the history of the town budget and wanted to provide that because part of what gets lost in translation is we're shifting staff and shifting board members. You're not always aware of the conversations that have been had historically. There have been several years ago multiple year conversations about going to a individual contracting for track services. The town staff and the board looked into it multiple times. Ultimately, the board said no, that they didn't want to move in that direction. Hence, we started to budget and just purchased the new track truck. Because the board direction given at that time and ongoing was no, they weren't interested in going that way. Also, the other track service fees that were used were actually gathered after we had ran the data and looked at where we estimated and anticipated that our fees needed to be. And the reason for that was provided as an example just this evening, is that continuously other communities are mentioned and brought up as a comparison, and we provided that information not because it was our driver intent to say, well, they do it, so we should do it, but as evidence provided to the board as well that this is what we projected, and when we looked at other communities, we found that the majority of what we projected is actually under what other communities are charging, or private enterprises are charging, or riding lines. So I did want to make that clarification.
My point is that town is not comparable to a private enterprise.
Absolutely, with information on it.
Yes.
Yeah, with the justification was given at the budget meeting, that we're running a business here, and we need to raise our prices because other people are charging them.
Okay. Bill.
In regards to the water, the town has invested millions and millions of dollars over the last number of years. We need to continue to do that to keep our system in place. I feel like the water is a necessity.
Somebody missed $500,000.
Somebody what?
Somebody missed $500,000 for
No.
15 years.
No, they didn't. They were paying for other things that at that time were deemed more important.
Yes, Cindy, did you want to say something?
Anyway, so the answer to your question is state mandated, unfunded mandates. The state continues to up our requirements, which costs the town money, which costs the citizens money. The citizens of the town is who has to provide the money to support the water system. Where else is it going to come from?
Obviously.
So it costs us what it costs us. The state mandates what we have to put into the system, and we have to follow what the state tells us. And it costs incredible amounts of money. We have to have special linings. We have to have special testing. We have to have it is annually they update the mandate, and it costs money, and so therefore it's going to cost the citizens more.
Okay, yes, it is.
I started out the budget process and there's very several ways because we raised stuff last year, and I think about the people that are on income and living ways about whether we're holding staff accountable for what they need to do. We are really trying our best to hold staff accountable and to run these things that are responsibly run and that we're not violating our agreements of when we run. So I came around was serious to the point where, yes, we do need an increase, and it was very difficult for me to get to that place. I just wanted to state where I was coming from on this, and that's why I'm proposing these resolutions, and we can agree to disagree and respect the opinions of people that are trying this right now that can make some problems, and I'm not reviewing that. But it is really important that we run this without a deficit.
Thank you. Yes?
Well, there's a few things I see. I mean, I understand why you're making the increases, but you are higher on your sewer rates than like, Roberts. And I do understand why some of those rates are high, is because of the dump costs. That's okay. Now, the water is a different issue. There's a lot of things we can do and we need to work on, because you've got 27 outside water companies that use family water. And I think at least 13 to 20 of us have to pay all these state charges that you guys are already doing, the testing and everything, and we're having to do the testing, so we're double billing. The state is getting rich off the crap that we have to do that's already being done. That could be a saving point. Also, I know you guys are wanting another new truck or something. We don't have to drive the best new trucks. Why do all the employees have employee trucks? I understand some of them, like Travis, that are on call 24/7, they need new vehicles. They need vehicles. But others don't need a vehicle to drive 2 blocks to the county shop. I don't get paid to drive my vehicle if I was working for somebody. I have to pay my own expenses out of my wages, so why should everybody else?
Thank you. Yes, Kate. Kate Smith, 250 Delta. This is a very simple question. The whereas references ordinance 2018-01. I wasn't able to find that on the webpage, so I would just appreciate it if you would make sure that it is available for viewing. 2018-1 is the ordinance referenced in the garbage rates. I just couldn't find it on the webpage. There were only 2 2018 ordinances listed, and 01 wasn't one of them. That's all. You could make sure that's available. Karen, did you? Yes.
A couple things. I would like to note that some of the originally proposed increases are less, ended up being less than as originally proposed. They did not raise the sewer rates, which I think was a really nice thing to do, or a good thing to do, I should say. And as far as the trash, when in some of the discussion, some RFPs were sent out a few years ago to the local trash companies, and nobody even responded. So, just the town has tried to work on the trash issue and the cost of trash. And I think they've made a lot of effort in the past to keep those rates down.
Okay. Yes, Susan.
I just do want to talk about RFP thing. In a town this size, if you remember when the RFPs were put out, that was 10 nights. And you really have to reach out to surrounding communities or to surrounding companies and let them know that we're doing this. But his RFP was rather supercilious sounding. It had like language about we reserve the right to sue, blah, blah, blah. It was really pretty awful. And I'm sure these local companies looked at it and just laughed. So even though RFPs were sent out, I'm not sure if they were actually very effective. And I do appreciate what you said, Tammy, but I think you have to consider the desk from which they came. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I just want to clarify for Paige in the public meeting so that people understand where to find the ordinance. So until we do a municipal code update ordinance, which happens typically every other year, when you go to the municipal code, there is a supplement history table, and those ordinances that have not been pulled into the municipal code itself yet are listed there, and that's where you'll find that ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, Cindy.
Also, I want to remind you that the reason for the trash increases is because Delta County is increasing our tipping fees.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
This was so helpful to me to see this on paper. It really clarified so much. And I'm just wondering, as Michelle alluded to in the last budget meeting, is there something like in a spreadsheet that we can look at solidly and see, like, there's a liner, this is the project for the 1 million gallon tank, this is the expense, this is how many, the machinery that we're going to use, this is the manpower hours, this is that for that project, and then that project, and for this next year coming, because that would be like, put my mind at ease, and I know a lot of people that we could just see it on paper and it would be explained well.
Thank you, Christine, and hopefully when we get cleared out up and running, that you'll be able to access that. So we got to get it up and running first. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please do, I was just going to ask for that.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution 2020-19 garbage rates.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, we're back to Charter Communications franchise agreement update. Corinne, you want to talk about this, or Bo?
I'm happy to take a stab at it. So included in the board packet is a proposed franchise agreement, and what this would establish is that there's an existing franchise agreement that's in place with Charter under the Cable Franchise Act that has expired. Under the terms of that agreement, it remains in place unless or until a new franchise agreement replaces the existing one. What we'd like to do is introduce this proposed franchise agreement this evening, and receive any comment that might be available and then get it adopted at the next meeting in November. We've been working directly with representatives of Charter. They had hoped to be here this evening, but due to kind of some communication and logistical issues, and then coupled with that, the COVID outbreak, they are not present. I don't know. Yeah, you guys should have received comments just in terms of what the goal is with respect to the partnership itself between Charter and the town. The number of franchisees that Charter services at the moment is relatively low, and based on that, that's a relatively low franchise fee that is annually collected by the town. $450? $350 a year. Charter has indicated that they hope to be relatively ambitious under the new franchise agreement and increase their subscription base. With that, it's anticipated that they will look to install within the town's infrastructure the appropriate utilities. Based on that and based on the possibility of expansion, the town staff is recommending a 5% franchise fee under this proposed agreement. As the board likely knows, that fee is passed on to the consumer, but coupled with that is if there is going to be an impact on our utilities, that the purpose of the franchise fee is to offset and mitigate that. So that's kind of a broad brush, but I'm happy to answer specific questions with respect to the agreement itself.
Okay, questions?
Taking a step forward, if we raise the franchise fee, that goes directly to the people that are subscribers. And I'm frankly feeling like for as little amount as it is and how painful it's going to raise fees to me, I would like to keep it at 3% because it just doesn't make that much difference. And more people might subscribe if the cost is lower. Secondly, before COVID began, and I asked last meeting about public access channel, I didn't see anything about public access in this agreement.
Certainly that's something that we will insert for round 2.
Yes, Bill.
Regarding the franchise fees, are they subject to sales tax?
No, it's a separate fee.
So, you look at your bill for Charter or whomever, the access fee should not be taxed with sales tax.
No, I believe it's just, so you have your service fee, you get $50 a month, and then your franchise fee on that, and then your sales tax.
Thank you.
All right, other questions for Bo? Yes, Michelle.
You did mention impact on our utilities. What might that look like? What should we be expecting in terms of if they do increase their subscription base?
Well, under the franchise agreement, Charter has a duty to, one, consult with town public works and make sure that any sort of installation that they do within the town rights of ways is agreeable and doesn't have an impact on town utilities itself. Coupled with that is burying lines or is it late hanging lines on our existing telephone poles. That would probably be the extent of it with respect to cable itself. But anytime, I anticipate anytime that you're working within the right of way and accessing the utility, there's potential for impact.
And then I just ask the staff or board members that might know how is our relationship been with Charter over the years. Has there been any negative impact related to the franchise fee or their work in town?
No, I don't believe so. Travis, do you have any issues working with them?
No, they've been fairly easy.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? Yes, Cindy.
Also to clarify, franchise fees are a street revenue.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, in the audience? Yes, Suzanne.
Well, it's about franchise fees. So I don't know, I don't have a charter account, so I haven't looked at it, but DMEA does charge sales tax on franchise.
Okay, thank you. All right. I guess this is for discussion only, so unless you want to move to make this a 3% versus a 5%?
Yeah, if you could get direction on that,
Okay.
so that the rate is inserted, and then we certainly can get the public access channel. I know you asked about that, so we'll include it in the second group.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion, Dave?
Yeah, I think the motion will be reduced, keep the franchise fee at the current 3% level.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Do you have any further discussion on that? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, that motion carries. Let's move on then to Sursa Excess Crime 2021 renewal vote.
Okay. Included in the packet is the renewal quote for Sursa's excess crime coverage. This is the coverage that the town added as additional coverage beyond $150,000 that's already included in our Sursa packet. This covers, as stated, any dishonesty, embezzlement, forgery, fraud, counterfeiting, etc. The town has kept it at a $500,000 addition, and you'll notice that the increase is $255 a year to $400 a year. The options are presented in the packet that the board could choose to discontinue the optional coverage, continue with the additional coverage as previous years for $400 a year, which is included in the proposed budget. Or increase coverage to $2 million, which is $825 a year, or increase coverage to $5 million at the cost of $1,700 a year.
Okay, thank you, Corinne. Questions, comments from the board?
I think that the recent embezzlement we've recent, or had years ago, the town could have been reimbursed more if we had a better purchase more insurance, and who's to say that doesn't happen again, So I would move that we continue our $500,000 coverage with the $400 per year.
Okay. I have a motion. Do you have a second? All right. Comments, Dave? I think you had your hand up.
Well, I'm curious about the deductible, and if we have that problem, do we need to have a conviction rather than being reimbursed?
The deductible's $1,000, and I don't believe you have to have a conviction to get reimbursement. Well, are you able to?
Yeah, I think you don't need to necessarily have a conviction. That's typically how it's structured, just based on the mere fact that you can have a settlement which would, in effort, kind of cut everybody's costs down.
So we're assuming the auditor might be able to put an authority on that to give us what we need if it happens.
They participate heavily in the process, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, anything from the audience? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Opposed? Opposed? All right, then that motion passes. Let's move on to resolution 2020, modification of town fee schedule.
It's a sanitary survey.
I did? I did! One of these days I'll get this down, guys. Public water system sanitary survey. All right, Corinne, Travis, who wants to take this one on?
I'm not allowed Travis to answer the questions of the board, but
Okay.
I would just say that as we had stated and not previously done by town staff, we included the sanitary survey and the results in the packet so that the board was able to review the results in its entirety as well as our required schedule to mitigate that has been turned in and provided to CDPHE, and we're waiting for their finalized acceptance.
All right. And I would like to point out to the board too that this is routinely done every 3 years, so this is not something that shows up annually. Okay, we have questions, comments? Good.
I'm just curious, like 2 years ago, what the level of violations were, and also when an engineer, when the state engineers come into small towns similar to ours, are there similar findings?
All right. Travis, can you answer at least the 3-year question?
I haven't looked at the last sanitary survey in 3 years, so I can't really say what the comparison is to this one. I have talked with other operators that the state engineer, the head state engineer has done sanitary surveys, and he is a lot more picky because he approves everything and stuff for any of your waterworks projects and stuff, so he does look at it with a lot finer tooth comb, as far as I've noticed.
Yes, Tammy? Having followed the town for several years as a reporter, I have always found that there have been deficiencies with the town of Paonia, and this is really upsetting to read for me. There were a lot of things wrong. 6 significant deficiencies, mostly at the clock and the 2 million gallon tank. One of them was at the half million gallon tank that has been not out of operation for the last 10 years and has not been completely taken down, and not been completely disconnected. There were a couple of times where the operator was not able to properly explain procedures. On page 59 about the sanitary survey, there was a comment that said at the time of the sanitary survey, the supplier stated that the interflowing residual is being measured on a continuous basis. However, there were limited records of the monitoring results available through due to a previous employee removing them. I really have a problem with that, making an excuse like that, because we don't know if that's true or not. I believe I know the previous employee is being referred to, and I was really upset by that comment. And just the fact that these deficiencies and these late reports just go on and on and on, it would be really nice to see the department get caught up in this, get caught up on all of the reporting, get the monitoring and record-keeping data caught up. Not everything was the fault of the town, but just
stay on top of this stuff. I mean, we shouldn't have, in my opinion, 6 significant deficiencies, 3 violations, 2 recommendations. It just seems like there is something lacking in oversight or operation. I really don't know what it is. The town is on the, I'm not sure which plans, but there's going to be an upgrade in, there's going to be a move from a C certification to a B certification. I believe we have a B certified person on staff at this point. I just go on and on. I was really upset at reading this, that there was so much in this report that I think is unnecessary. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Michelle.
I can actually answer the question about the last survey. I did request that from Corinne earlier this week. So in 2017, we had 2 significant deficiencies, 2 violations, and 9 recommendations.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes.
Well, one comment I'd like to add that hasn't been mentioned yet was the fact that the 1 million gallon tank hasn't been run for a number of years, and yet it's been reported in these meetings that we run that on a regular basis every month to keep the plant alive, and I found those 2 statements to be in conflict. I'm sorry, I did have a mind.
Yeah.
You want me to say it again?
Yeah.
Okay. I found the fact that it's been reported here in many meetings that we run the 1 million gallon tank a few hours a month to keep it refreshed. And yes, the report says it hasn't been run since 2014, and there was some indication that maybe there's lack of knowledge of how to run the plant. So I found those statements to be in conflict with each other.
Correct. So as far as that, it's a terminology difference, because when we're talking about the plant being offline, that means the water is not being entered into the system that's being drawn down by users that are on the water plant. So yes, the plant's being run, yes, water is moving through it, yes, we have the tank full and that water is stored, but the tank is offline because the water from the 1 million is not entering into the system, which would be the in-town users. We're still drawing our water and our uses from the 2 million. So that is just a definition difference when they're talking about the tank has been offline.
Okay, yes, Michelle.
I did notice that the Colorado.gov, they have a sanitary survey preparation course available. Has staff taken that course?
Yes.
Okay. And it looks like we do have some responses on this, but I wonder if we could get monthly updates until everything has been completely resolved.
Yes.
Okay, other comments, questions? Okay, Suzanne?
I was wondering, how can an employee walk off with records if everything's computerized and is entered into the system?
Not everything is computerized. We're working toward that, but it has not been historically computerized.
Okay. I thought that was part of the new tank and everything we did, it was that data system.
The SCADA, Travis, you have to explain a little bit better, but the SCADA system was not set up so that it's gathering that data on a daily basis and recording it. It's over a period of time, and not all of the records that they're mentioning here are numbers that I believe are generated through the SCADA. But Travis will have to
correct
that.
The new SCADA system at the 1 million will be, it will actually download a month's worth of data and keep it on the file. That 2 million right now, 24 hours is the only time it keeps data, so we have to transfer that over.
So that data is transferred over manually because every 24 hours it's writing over itself.
Okay, there's no backup on it, it just rewrites itself all the time?
Yes.
Okay, and it's not like paper records. I mean, when you're saying you walk off with records, what records were you talking about? then?
They were weekly comparison charts.
Manually written.
Okay, on paper? Okay, thanks.
Were they quoting individual numbers?
They were comparison numbers,
Comparison to what?
quoting comparison numbers.
Don't you report those to the state every month? Every month?
Do monthly monitoring reports that quoting, that are downloaded daily. But the comparison is to make sure the CO17 compares to a handle prevailing year.
Kristen, my question is, all these things that happen, what did they cost the town? Were there fines?
No.
No, just verbal or written?
The cost, some cost to the town would be in the notification. The town then, depending on the tier, is required to provide notification. Some of them are required to go out individually, and those are an additional cost. Ones that can be included when the town supplies the consumer confidence report are included during that time, and so there is no additional cost.
Thank you.
Yes, Paige.
Page 215 Delta. I saw this and I'm very concerned. I have to tell you, I worked for the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality for 28 years doing environmental regulation. And if I had been told that I was told by, somebody told me I didn't need a permit, and there's no record of that, I would have been very concerned.
I have record of it.
Okay, good. That's not what this says.
No, it just wasn't there, but I have record of it.
So, but are they going to ask you, do you need a discharge permit?
No, I do not.
Okay. So, and then the other point being, is to say that somebody walked off with the records. That's not okay. The records have to be taken care of. It's really important. And the cost here to me is not financial, it's perception. We are very concerned about the water in this town. We spend money on a filter because we don't want to drink the water that comes out of our tap. Not everyone can do that. So, this only makes it worse. And then I also wanted to let you know that I saw on the new webpage, it's probably on the existing one, that there's numerous pages of where reports aren't being filed finally to the state. And this is not good. And I don't know how to fix it, but here I have a suggestion. We talk about tanks, 1 million gallons, 2 million, the red line. I would like to see one town meeting that is devoted to explaining this water system. Did you have your tour? Is there a video? Do you all understand this water system? There are so many sources of water for this, it's unbelievable. And I think the town, by a Zoom meeting, whatever, would appreciate understanding where we are and why we are where we are. And should we all be filtering our water? You know, can everyone afford that? Who in this room might be filtering their water? It's a huge problem. And I'd like to see it taken seriously. This is piecemeal. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, that's something we can look at, is doing a Zoom education meeting. And is there any progress, any idea if we're going to be able to do the tour before the end of the year?
Okay.
Yeah, we can't all be in the same car.
I would say we could do a board tour with the recording, but we would have to limit attendance.
But how do you space
Do it that's impossible at the plant to space people. That would, it would.
Right, you can't do it.
If we would be able to. The only other option is to do it in smaller groups, and I, of course, need to work with Travis on how we schedule that. If instead of doing an entire tour, or an entire board at once, taking smaller groups, maybe committee by committee, would be another option.
What about somebody doing a video tour and then providing that?
Yeah.
And then putting that up on the website as well as giving it to the board?
We were going to do that at the same time as the board tour. We can do it in lieu of the board tour and readdress the board later date.
Can we possibly do that? That would be a really good idea, at least then, it will be out there and keep people dead. Thank you. All right, yeah.
Question on something John said, that you don't need a discharge permit system. It says, the report says that the permit, the lack of a permit is in violation of Colorado Water Quality Control Act, CRS 25-8-101, and that water is being discharged into irrigation water. So why do you not need a permit for that?
I can show you the reports that the engineer did. It's going into 5 settling ponds. It's going into 5 settling ponds before it is discharged into irrigation water. That never hits state waters, is the interpretation of the engineering report.
Okay, anything else? Yes.
Christina Harrison. I think in general, all the citizens of Paonia consider the water like the most important thing to deal with in this town, bar none, hands down. We even have a water moratorium because in ways, I think some of the council and the staff were not taking it seriously enough. And that was the mandate to cease and desist, stop selling water taps until everything about the water system was figured out. From the engineering studies to the data getting to where it needs to go. And I think that's the perception of the town citizens. If that's not the number one priority, like if we are out there, making bike lanes and painting and spending our time, public works, spending time painting the streets and then cleaning it up, and this stuff is not dealt with, that's a big loss of trust of the citizens of what their number one priority is. And that's all.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
All I was going to say is that you're not wrong. Everyone is correct. And Travis and I have talked about this. It is a balancing act. Yes, the water system is number one priority. The water and sewer system is number one priority for Travis. But we also get a lot of comments and concern and pushback about the other areas of the town. And we are aware of the deficiencies, and I'm aware of the deficiencies, and we are working on establishing changes to the way things have been done so that we can address them. There's no shame in admitting when something's not been done right, and it's something we're working on, and we are going to correct. And so, word for word, and I know until the community starts to see them put into action, that's what they are. But I will state that we're aware of it, I'm aware of it, and we are addressing it, and we will continue to improve. I think it's important that we take care of what can be seen, and it's important that we take care of what can't be seen, which includes that infrastructure, and both of those are being taken very seriously and will be addressed, and have been addressed and will continue to be addressed.
Thank you. Yes, Susan.
I just want to say I missed the goal setting workshop that the board had, so I'm not sure what came out of it, but when I see things like this, and I think it brings us home to realize that, this is government, this is why, water and sewer is an important part of government. But I don't know if you remember that talk that Sally Kane did about things that are really important and are getting ignored, things that are not very important but are really loud and taking a lot of your attention. And I think this is a perfect example of her little system of goal setting, and I don't know if the board could look at this again in the context of what they learned there, and maybe you have in that meeting that I missed, to maybe kind of redirect what the most important goals of the town are, because this wasn't available for you at that time, I imagine. And it's obviously very important. I did go to the EPA website that was mentioned in the CDPHE, and Paonia is listed as a town that we've made the EPA website for the numerous quantity and seriousness of our violations with our water over the years. And I don't think that's something I mean, it's out there now. I'm not sure if we can ever take that back, but we're on the EPA website with year after year of violations. So, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so we have this, I don't think there's any action that needs to be taken on this. We shall look for a monthly update, hopefully the mid-meeting in December, we will have an update on what's been done. All right, let's move forward now to go to Resolution 2020-20, modification of town fee schedule.
So after that, okay, timing is terrible, but it's been discussed many times by the board. I wanted to look at the administrative fees and where they were at and any that needed to be modified. So that is what I have presented. A couple of things, we are looking at the proposed resolution that did come up was, apologies, I'm trying, under the fence fee, there was conversation, I explained that the reason for the increase in the fence, one of the reasons for an increased recommendation for fence permits was because of the additional regulations and review process that we go through now under the modified fence ordinance that was passed earlier this year. It did come up, and after the fact in the conversation today, that it may behoove the town to include the current fee and line item at the $50 permit fee for someone that applies for a fence that's not outside of the standard specifications, so it doesn't trigger the additional review policies that were included in that fence ordinance. So I did want to bring that to the board as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the few line items that were highlighted with modifications to the cost.
Okay, questions for Fred? Yes, Karen. I just want to see if I understood. So you want to leave the fence fee at $50 unless it's something special that requires additional. So, okay, 50 would be our normal fee.
Right, so currently if you apply for a fence permit that's outside the standard 4 feet in the front yard, 6 feet in the backyard, of course there's a few variations in there, that is a standard review and a simple process and a flat, currently it's $50. Included in that modification was the ability to request taller fences, specific mostly for front yard areas, that then require additional review by different departments prior to approval. And so the conversation and recommendation were that if it triggers those additional reviews, then that would be when it would potentially trigger a higher review cost than a standard review process, which is currently $50.
Okay, other questions, comments? Michelle?
I wanted to check in on the dog fee. We touched on this a little at the GAPS meeting, but we talked about with the registration potentially having a different fee level when dogs are picked up at large, a lower fee for dogs that aren't registered with the town and a much higher fee for dogs that have not been registered. And I know that's not part of the fee schedule, that comes separately with Public Works, but I just wanted to clarify that that was tied to this in terms of hopefully encouraging more people to register their dogs.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Other questions? Yes, Dave.
A couple comments on life of the dog. The dog that's for 7.5 years, if they're staying in order to change that fee up, and I just think that fee is exorbitant and doesn't encourage people to go for an annual fee. So I would suggest that fee drops to about 45 instead of 75. On the fee for the sidewalk businesses, I think that should just stay at 25, and the fence review just stay at 50, and just leave it at that. I'd like to see fewer increases in fees.
Okay. Yes. Did you have a comment, Bill? I was going to say, do you want to make a motion to do those, or wait, Tammy? I just want to agree with the fence
review $50 unless something triggers, more review. In that case, maybe 75 or, because it is a little more work for the town.
Okay, since Dave has several things, why don't we take them one by one? And that way, if people disagree with one certain thing, then we can do it. Did you want to say something before we went to Michelle?
Well, I just had another comment on the sidewalk, for the business use. I just kind of wonder why we charge a fee for that at all. It seems kind of business unfriendly if it's not obstructing traffic, and if it is obstructing traffic, it probably shouldn't be there, fee or no fee.
It predates me and was one of the fees that was going to be absorbed into the business license, and honestly, it predates me. It's always been a fee that was charged and should continue to be assessed to the businesses.
In my mind, I don't think that's a good reason to charge a fee. I would take it out. I think it's probably not a huge impact on our budget at all, and we could be a little friendlier to businesses if we can just say, hey, put out your sign on the sidewalk and we've got a special event.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. Yeah, Kim?
I disagree, we're trying to be business friendly. I agree with either removing it or keeping it 25.
Okay. Let's start at the top. Dave, we have dogs. Let's start with dogs.
Can I ask a general question?
Yeah.
I'm concerned about transparency because in the public records request, there's an attorney review for $30. There's a public request $25 an hour. It seems like those kind of fees can really discourage people from trying to make requests. And, I just don't know where that falls with the freedom of information laws. I don't want to be discouraging people from making requests.
So, I will say that that's been upheld within the courts in terms of that amount. And unfortunately, it's a small fraction of what I tax.
And I believe it's actually under the limits that are set at state.
It's 35, yeah.
Yeah, so you can charge up to $35 an hour for the attorney review, and that was actually brought before the board, and a board approved fees, a standalone last year, I believe. It may have been 2018.
I think it was before my time.
It all starts to melt together.
So then you review all freedom of information requests?
No,
Only substantial.
yeah, it's really only substantial ones. And then the last two substantial ones that we've had to do that I had time on, we actually sent them over for CIRSA coverage on that, so there was some offsets with it.
Okay.
We get up to, under our policy, we get up to $10,000 a year for attorney assistance on record requests.
Okay, thank you.
And, I don't know why we charge that piece at all. I think the hourly is reasonable because people have to copy things and put them on drives, and I think the copies per page might be reasonable, but I just like to not discourage people from trying to get at it.
Okay. Well, again, why don't we stop? Let's start from the top. Let's start with dogs. And then if you have comments on dogs, let's get a motion on the table, and then if you have comments on dogs, we'll take it.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that fees for dogs to be as follows. A spayed neuter dog, $45, good for the life of the dog. Spayed neuter fees of $10 and $20. If they pay before 12/31, then that fee is cut in half, and the untouched is $25.35.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let me try it again. So there's a fee for a spayed neuter dog that's for the life of the dog, correct? I'll just do that one. $12.
There's no ordinance.
So, it's what you say? 45?
There's other finance members.
Okay, all right, hold on. We have a motion to make the spayed and neutered dog for the life of the dog, 45. Do I have a second?
So, the ordinance for dog licenses says all dog licenses issued hereunder shall expire December 31st of each year. So, you cannot do a lifetime license unless you change the ordinance. Because most of these fees have an ordinance behind them, and I don't think you have the luxury of knowing which ordinance goes with each fee, and I would highly recommend that this table that was created, I think back in 2015, be updated and resurrected and made available to the trustees and the public, because each one of these, not all of them, but most of them have an ordinance that may preclude you from changing it by much, or you could have a lot of latitude, but you need to know the ordinance behind these. So that's the one that you really can't do based on ordinance section 77-110.
I'll withdraw my motion.
So, can I see the thing? So I would disagree with that interpretation. It is true that the license expires in the year, but it's not to say that the fee couldn't be paid and then just apply. You know, it's on record that you pay the lifetime fee and then you just reissue the license per year, if you will.
So what about rates?
We don't get charged another fee for it.
Mayor,
I'm sorry, yes.
I make a motion that we don't do anything with the rates, maintain it as they are. If we want to reduce this subject sometime in the spring, we can do it, but I don't think we can nitpick it tonight.
All right, so you would...
I'll withdraw my motion and second Bill's motion.
Okay, so we have
A motion and a second on the table to leave all the fees at the current rate.
So you wouldn't adopt 2020.
Okay, so then you just,
Yeah.
okay, so we just ignore it, move on to the table.
Okay. Well, we have a pending motion.
Okay, yes, so,
Well, I don't know what to do then.
I know what to do.
You can fail for lack of a second.
Do we have a second?
All right. So yeah, you gotta vote. I think vote on it, and then we'll just table it until 2021.
Okay, so we vote nay on the motion.
No. We vote yay to not continue, basically, to not continue discussion on 2020.
Everybody vote nay, or yay.
Yeah, everybody vote yes. We have to do that now, yes.
I do want to say some of these fees do require an annual vote. So, some do have to be renewed in, and that's why, again, it's in the writing of the ordinance. So it's, perhaps it is appropriate just to vote this in as not changing them, and then you can always change it in the future as you need to. And as far as, when you look at it again, it would be best not to have really convoluted things happening with wording of ordinance and then some special kind of interpretation of how we do it when we actually do the resolution. So I'd encourage you, just in light of transparency, to be very clear about things. So when you think of things, and if you do have to change an ordinance to make your piece, so it's really understandable to like stupid people like me and the general public, it would be helpful. So I would say that perhaps the motion to adopt the fee, not change them when we adopt them would probably, anyway, there are some fees that require annual review. So, of course, I don't know, the last time we did it was early last year, right? So, I don't know. But you don't have to follow all the laws. I mean, you can have many unreviewed for years.
Okay, page 215 bills. So I have two things here. There is something that I really highly recommend you change, but before I go to describe that, I do not know where on the webpage anyone can find these fees.
They're not on the webpage.
They need to be on the webpage. Why would you not want people to know what they're going to pay for a dog tag, or et cetera? Please, put that right there with your, where you do building fee schedule or something. I mean, isn't this, okay, all that should be on there. That's my first request. Now, my suggestion is, there is a throwback from 2015 on this current schedule, and that is having to do with building permits. Alright, so on the top of the second page, building permit fee says $70 plus formula. Where's the formula? That is a throwback to when this was the single page, which I brought up, I'm sorry to be such a broken record. This was on the web page before 2015, and it is indeed a formula. But this is no longer part of the ordinance. You now have this 6-page, very prescriptive permit fee schedule, which starts at $70, and then you're not intending to charge 70 plus what's in here, are you?
That is the formula. So for clarification, if you use that formula to get to those numbers, that's what you're going to get to.
Then why?
That's why it says 70 plus the formula.
Well, the plus formula to me is additive. So you're telling me I'm going to pay $70 plus 73, 35 if I'm going to do a project for $501?
No, you would use the $70, and then if you look at the formula, above $2.25.
This is the formula.
Yes. That is the formula, and then the other chart is a breakdown of if you put that formula into action. So we had people at the town level request to see not a formula, but they wanted the calculation, and so that's what that is.
Why don't
they go together?
Simply say C fee schedule and not 70 plus, because to me it's very confusing, because you really don't want to charge $70 plus. Anyway, that's a suggestion. And then my last thing is, so we still have the building inspector is charging based on fees that are in the contract. So right now, the building official plan review is $100 plus actual. What is actual?
His plan review fee is $120 an hour. So it's not plus actual, that is the charge. For his contract, he charges $120 an hour.
I would recommend you revise that to make that clear. Because right now it says $100 plus actual, and I don't know what that means.
It would have to be changed to get a resolution. It would be a suggestion that we do that once those are finalized, contingent upon the...
Yeah, the new, the TCC, or the new contract.
Okay, all right.
So what are we voting on?
So we have a motion and a second to vote on keeping all the fees the way they were originally, so all the yellow stuff is gone. Yes, Michelle.
I like Hayden's suggestion that when we bring this back before the board to look at fees at a future date, that we do have either references to the ordinances or information on this one needs to be reviewed annually, or this one has these restrictions, something, preferably an actual link to the ordinance, but something lined out for the board to help see what we're actually required to do with each one of those.
Okay, all right. Last time we did it, and then
one other point is, you can't just write the formula, you have to have a formula attached here so you guys can review what is it. Because I voted on fees twice when I was a trustee, and it was never included. The board members were voting on a formula that they had no access to and no knowledge of. And how can you vote on things that you have no knowledge of? And it happens. So just to be as complete as possible when this information is given to the board, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, this stays the same. And then we will bring this back, and then the building fees will be addressed when we look at that whole process.
Yes, it's separate and distinct. But the reason nothing like that was attached was because there was no recommendation to modify it.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Resolution 2020-21, withdrawal and space to create. So, we had a meeting of the Space to Create Committee, and considering where the state is, where we are withdrawing some space to create. The The state looks like will only fund those developments those projects which are in pre-development, which are originally in Trinidad. We're not going to get any more money. And so we still have to figure out, we have $13,000 and some odd dollars in the bank from the Veteran Foundation. And we are in touch with veterans to find out what we can do with those funds. Whether we can use them for some purpose on our own, or whether we have to return them to the foundation. But at this point, there is no reason to go forward with Space to Create in its current form. And it looks like there will be no other Space to Create cities because there just isn't the funding for it. All right, any questions on this? Comments? Yes, Suzanne.
So when you say there's no funding for it, did it happen with the financial downturn? Is that what it was?
That's a piece of it. The other piece of it is this was a government baby.
Okay.
And when Jerry Coles took over, he said, kind of fine, you can do it, but yeah, it was on the chopping block when COVID hit.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? All right, can I get a motion? I move that we withdraw from Space to Create. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Yes, Michelle.
Just one comment, if the Veteran Foundation comes back and says, we can retain and use those funds, I wonder if we could direct them somehow to affordable housing, since that was part of.
To do what?
Affordable housing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and, we are still, in my report, I'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, we'll decide what we can do with those funds, if they let us keep them. All right, we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Let's move on to Resolution 2020-22, Supervisory Authority of the Town Administrator. So Michelle brought this up at some point, I think via email or whatever, that we did not really have any kind of form that actually the mayor is the one that is the direct supervisor, or it's not so much the direct supervisor, it is the board's contact with the mayor, and it is the person who gives direction to the town administrator. Do we have any questions or comments about this? Okay, can I get a motion? I move that we approve Resolution 2020-22. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Suzanne, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just was curious, I don't have the resolution in front of me, but does it refer to the ordinance that has the language that, is it the town administrator's ordinance that talks about what who has authority over her?
It refers to Section 220 of the town code.
2220?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have, yes, Michelle.
I've mentioned this before, but I just wanted to mention it again. I feel like our staff reporting structure is still just a little bit messy. We have two department heads now that report directly to the mayor, and one department head that reports to the administrator who reports to the mayor. I don't know, I would like it to be a little cleaner, but that's my comment.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. All right, moving on to number 14, Town Administrator 6-month review. Dave and Kara.
Basically, this is a reminder that we're due to do a 6-month review of the town administrator, so we've included a copy of the 3-month evaluation. Also the priorities and some response from the town administrator on that, and we'll look for guidance to the board on what we'll do next.
So I believe you had a recommendation as far as how we would approach this date.
We can use the same format that we did for the last evaluation, where each person fills in a little part on what they think of for this last 3 months. We included the very first one we did on our town administrator, so it would kind of jog your memory about what we did at that time. So, we're supposed to have on file for what the trustee wanted us to do as a personnel committee is to make sure we're 2 reviews in 6 months of the town administrator, so that's what we're doing.
And I thought you had said at some point that you thought if we just did another review of what was done the last time and progress made toward that, that we would consider that as the second review. Am I wrong on that? So that post-process would be that we would go back to the review we did 3 months ago, and then Corinne's, her goals, and then use that as our criteria for doing this. Any thoughts on that?
I thought the process we used last time worked very well. It was good communication all around, and I think we have a review that the board was happy with, so I would be in favor of following that same process.
Any other discussion? Okay, then I guess
Well, the last time the person said, is a review will give you a deadline, has to come in, schedule an executive session if the town administrator wants us, is it able to schedule an executive session to discuss the review, and then the mayor will compile the results of that, and that becomes public.
okay.
One thing that was during the process time is clarity about when there's public input, and, I think when we put an answer when we want public input or where public input goes, I think it goes to the mayor, is that correct?
I'll go with that what it was last time. And we did, I believe, announce it on, I don't know how we did.
I was directed to make posts on social media and put it on the website.
And that people would email me or send me a letter. And then I collected those and then compiled them along with the rest of the data.
Okay, so also for people that are specific, you can come down and the town administrator, make sure it comes to the mayor.
Okay.
What was the date?
Okay, great. Alright, thanks everyone. Let's move on with the consent agenda. I don't think we have minutes, but we do have the liquor license renewal and modification of premises. Would somebody like to make a motion on that?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as provided, except for the minutes.
Did you want a second? Discussion? Yes, Bill.
The modifications, is that going to interfere with the alley or anything?
No, it goes to property line.
So there's no interference with the alley?
No.
And does the sheriff out there, the chief have any problems with it?
I'm sorry, what?
Does the chief have any problems with the issue?
No, there was none noted.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that motion carries as well. All right, next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. So I did attend the juvenile diversion fall meeting on October 29th. And it was an overview of what juvenile diversion is, and that's a program that's set up so that when juveniles commit a crime, it's a way to cure that crime so that it doesn't follow them for the rest of their lives. And there are a lot of steps depending on where the juvenile ends up in the system. And the reason we do it is because it prevents crime, it reduces caseloads, it facilitates restitution, and it restores victims. Because part of the process can be an apology to the victim. So in a lot of ways, it also puts in a lot of services for teens that can be struggling in their lives. They can get therapy services, they can get family therapy services, they can get skills classes, and it's all paid for so that they don't have to do it. And there are some minimal fees to go along with this, but they've also realized that most of the time the families cannot afford the fees, and so the fees get waived or put as useful community service. So it really is a wonderful program. In the past 5 years, Paonia has had 4 referrals to this program. And we do financially contribute to the program. I think it's minimal, maybe, I don't know, $100, $1,000, just maybe.
$1,400.
So $1,400. And it's worth every penny of it. The second thing is Neil and I met with Brenda Burns, who is a case manager at the Center for Mental Health in Montrose, and we're part of that system. And we are, while we did meet previously with the mobile crisis unit, which they are in process of putting together and getting everybody trained. In the meantime, we have the ability to pull in this case manager without enrolling somebody in the mental health system. So that if you know a person who is in need and who needs some services like filling out forms or getting help getting Social Security or food stamps or whatever, we can collect, the police department, whoever can directly contact the case manager who will come out and help this person. And that their services will pay for Medicaid or Medicare or whatever they have. Again, it can be a free service for people. They really help them get them on their feet. The other thing is the crisis person for our area will be coming out and coordinating directly with the police department. We are going to get some training for police officers on mental health issues. And so the goal is to get the police out of mental health situations entirely. The only time police would be called in is if there is a weapon involved, if there's active violence that's going on. But other than that, mental health will take care of it, and not our police department. Next, Karen Button and I had a phone conference with Trish Thibodeau and Nicole Glazer of Region 10. And we were starting to investigate the possibilities for doing our own affordable housing project and what that would involve and the kind of sources of income and processes we can look at in doing this. This is not something that's going to be done next year. But it's a long-term process, and since affordable housing really is a necessity in this area, getting some information would be really helpful. And Region 10 has so many different kinds of programs that we can plug into. The other thing that we spent a significant amount of time on was talking about ADUs. And she sent us some really informative stuff that I would like to pass on to Nick and Michelle for your information. But it's some great information. And then, yes, I stopped with Greg Langelski. And then I would like to gently remind the board that according to our code of conduct, when the board makes a decision, when we walk out of this room, whether we said yea or nay, we publicly support that decision. That we don't understand what the board has done, and that instead we stand with the general decision of the board. And that if there are allegations of wrongdoing that we hear, that we highly encourage people to bring those allegations, either by town staff or anyone, to Corinne or me, so that we can investigate those. Instead of having the rumor mill turn on and on and on with unsubstantiated allegations about the town staff and what we're doing as a town. All right, and that is my report. Anybody have any questions? Okay, moving on. Committee reports, finance and personnel.
We're trying to have something for something that we put up on that's going to be.
And it's not, I need to do that before we leave.
Okay, so we can tell the public what they're going to do, if they want to join us, and not just sign checks.
3:30?
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Karen? Okay, finance, government affairs and public safety. Right.
We got it. Yeah, our guest meeting, the last one was held yesterday via Zoom. We had 3 members of the public that attended, which we always encourage. We discussed the marijuana issue, which will be presented to the board during the December 15th meeting for a resolution accepting the election results and an ordinance establishing our regulations. We discussed back to advantage, which Chief Ferguson talked about a little bit. We talked about the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units. We're currently looking to establish codes as ADUs are currently not permitted. It can't be permitted until the water moratorium is lifted. STRs, short-term rentals, we discussed those. We're looking to update the code that was written in the 1980s. We also discussed dark skies and the concrete washout, which Corinne reported on. Our next meeting will be Monday, December the 7th at 3 o'clock. The public, again, is welcome to attend.
Anything to add, Michelle? All right, thank you very much. Next, moving on to Public Works, Utilities, and Facilities. Tammy and Bill?
We have not met since the last meeting, so no, nothing to report. And I did not schedule a meeting today, so I don't know when we're going to have our next meeting, hopefully next Tuesday. And if anybody wants to know that date, let me know.
Okay, thank you. Tree board, do I get Tammy?
Again, nothing to report. They're still waiting on the State Forest Service. I understand that Kenny Long might have had some issues, family issues she's had to deal with that hasn't prevented her from completing that. So as soon as we get that report, the tree survey will have something to report.
Okay. Any other points of discussion or anything? All right, seeing none, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We got a lot accomplished tonight. Thank you, people from the audience, for taking the time and for speaking up. We really appreciate it.